Hey everybody, Drew from the Nesting Eagles podcast. I'm here with my co-host Beth. How's it going, Beth?
It's going pretty good, Drew.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty packed episode. We'll get right after it because we got a lot to go through. But Beth, you wanted to mention something first off and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Big Bear Nest, Jackie and Shadow, and we are not gonna use names beyond Jackie and Shadow just in case one of us slips, says the wrong name. We know Sunny has had a pretty big time going on here. That's the last time you'll hear us say it. So moving forward, no names, just because we only do one run through of this. We film it on the fly.
Yeah.
So so we're just gonna keep rolling and hopefully you guys can follow around along, but there's no reason to necessarily write us to let us know which was the eaglet's name. In our end of it, Drew and I, we don't name eaglets or eagles, so it's just easier to refer to them in general.
Yeah, maybe one episode we'll get into it. I'm kind of I'm so superstitious when it comes to naming eagles, and maybe we can get into that story at a later date, maybe in the summer.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's we apologize. We'll apologize. We're gonna make mistakes. We're human. We do our best, and sometimes we trip up. Storm. I mentioned Storm instead of Shadow. Storm's my dog, so I'm very familiar with saying that, and it was just a slip. So I
And then
apologize.
it's just awkward because then I hate to interrupt you to say, yo,
Yeah.
you used the wrong name. But then I went ahead and used the next wrong name. So, yeah, we have 300 nests. We have 500 volunteers. So we've got a lot going on in our lives, along with our lives in
Family and
general.
kids and yeah, all
Yeah.
the other stuff. So yeah.
So, so it's a lot to keep in mind what an eaglet's name is, what gender it is, because the fact of the matter, it doesn't matter. I know it matters a great deal to a lot of you, but it doesn't matter in the respect of what we're seeing the bird do at that moment, and that's what we want to talk about is the activity.
Yeah.
So I hope that is a good explanation for all of you. And with that, you are looking at the two eaglets of the Big Bear Nest. And
Yes. So
someone did the screen save, and I just thought it was cute. So, um, thanks to all of you who are so actively watching that nest because we actually get a lot of our information from you because we just don't have the opportunity to sit down and watch the nest.
yes, and it's there's definitely a fledge watch. I've watched it on and off. We are seeing a lot of branching like they are in this picture. They're getting farther and farther off the nest, and then we can show the picture of getting a little bit of air. And this is kind of goes into what we do at the Nest Watch. This is not a fledge. We use a full fledge form. So what this is getting some air. This is part of the process that they do. They'll take these little tiny flights. I love this time of the year because it's just so funny to watch them. They're kind of doing these little jumps and then they'll get a little burst of air and it's just like you can see in their eyes they're like what is going on. You can tell they're a
But this
little
was really confident.
yeah, it
I
was.
I
Yeah.
thought this was a really smooth move for their first liftoff, really.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I think they're getting close again. The normal fledging, they can fledge as early as 8 weeks. Most of them don't, and it's usually something happened that caused them to fledge that early. Usually biting flies or just some sort of accident where they fell out of the nest. But they are capable of fledging at 8 weeks, and then it usually ranges up to about 14 weeks. But I'd say the sweet spot's around 10 to 14 weeks. 10 to 12 too is right in that range is usually when they fledge. So they're getting there. It could be any day, it could be a week, who knows?
I would prefer it to be a week
Yeah,
personally because when this bird landed, it laid down. So that amount of activity exhausted its energy reserve, it looked like. So there needs to be a lot more cardiovascular work. They have good form, but I think they just need more stamina.
yeah,
And that takes time. When they're branching and they're getting air, you anticipate that they're going to go at any minute, but it can take weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, and just I don't know this area very well, and maybe if there are some of our listeners that have actually been to the physical nest, I'd love to hear about it in the comments or send us an email at nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com. What's under this nest? It looks like it's pretty high up, and it's going to be a if there is an accidental fledge, it could go sideways, but I'm not sure what's under the nest, to be honest. It looks, I
Looks
have
like it's
looked
on a
at the,
bluff or something.
yeah, I know I've looked at the second camera angle, which is interesting. I kind of like that one too, because that really gives you a perspective of what we see at the Nest Watch. That's usually what we're seeing. So it's a more of a wide angle, a little bit farther away, and you're seeing much more of the territory. And that's I kind of respond to that one just because that's what we're usually seeing here when we're observing nests with spotting scopes or long range binoculars, long range cameras, that kind of thing. But it's interesting, and hopefully for everyone, the fledge goes well, and everything goes smoothly. I'm going to warn you now; it's probably not going to be a graceful first flight. It rarely is. I honestly, have you seen any graceful first flights, Beth? I haven't. It's
Um,
usually a little awkward.
the flight is good, the landing's bad.
Yeah, yeah. They have to learn how to
Mhm.
put that all together. So, uh,
That little branch where this one likes to stand and view the world below them is a little precarious too. So hopefully
yeah,
that stays solid
yeah.
for them.
All right. Well, as we said, they're kind of on the fledge watch. We'll see. We'll kind of update you. Maybe we'll pop in if it does happen. Maybe we'll do a little video, little episode, mini episode if something happens. Just talking about it. But we'll see.
It
See
is a
what we can
very
do.
exciting time, but just because they fledge doesn't mean you're not going to see them on camera anymore or that it's going to end quickly. In our experience, and we have a huge range of nests. I mean, we have 300 that we're watching. The pattern is that they stick around for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So it's rare that they fledge and you not see them again. So there will still be plenty to enjoy of these two and the adults at their nest at Big Bear. And a shout out to everyone at Big Bear, all the camera operators, the people who um, manage this whole system. You guys do a phenomenal job, and we really appreciate being to have us having a sneak peek into the lives of these eagles because it does inform Drew and I, and it helps us formulate some opinions about what's going on at our nests now that there's so many cameras to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, it gives us a different perspective, which is always great. We want to always learn. That's one of my favorite things. I say this all the time. I probably said it multiple times on the pod too. Is one of my favorite things about doing this program is you're constantly learning. We're constantly seeing things that are new and different every season, and we're actually documenting stuff that's hasn't been documented before. So it's really cool. The Nest Cams do that. We do this, and then some of the other Nest Watch programs similar to us in Florida and other areas. Colorado has one too. That's where I initially got into this. So there's some around the country, and it's just a cool experience to learn so much about bald eagles. So it's a lot of fun. And with that, we're going to kind of jump into. Oh, here's another quick shot of,
There's the big air shot.
yeah,
Yeah.
Big Air. And the sibling was like, whoa, looking up, like, whoa, how'd you do that? So, yeah, it's fun to watch the interaction, especially when you have multiples. Um, it tends to be a little competitive at times where you have two, three eaglets in the nest. You can tell they're a little competitive, and there's usually one that really is real motivated and usually gets the ball rolling. And then most of the time, the other sibling or the two siblings usually follow suit pretty quickly after. Sometimes it just there's one that just sits in the nest forever, and that's another.
That third one, yeah,
Yeah,
that can
yeah. So
sit there a
it
long
kind of
time.
it differs, but
Yeah.
that's a really cool shot that somebody grabbed. So. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about our bald eagle nest watch here in southern Wisconsin. Our updates. I was looking over the data. I think right now we have about four fledges that I've found so far. But seeing a lot of branching activity, especially in my area. I don't know if you're seeing that too, Beth, but so I think we're gonna see as we get into early June, we're probably gonna see a lot more fledging then. So it should be interesting starting to get into that peak season of fledging. Um,
So
and
this is the a part of the road tour that we
Yep.
did. So
Yeah,
um,
so we actually Beth and I was that the third time we've met in
that's the
person, I
third
think?
time
Yeah.
we've met, yeah, in person.
We're live in different areas, probably about an hour and a half apart when we lived in Wisconsin. I made the trek back to Wisconsin for Memorial Day. That was a lot of fun. I got to look at a couple of my nests, including that nest that Beth observed the banding. So I got back to that nest. That was great to see them. And then a couple of area nests that I've observed on and off. So that was fun to do. And then also I took a trip over to the Milwaukee area with Beth and Ginny, who's another longtime volunteer of us, and Beth's husband Ken. We took a little road trip around to all the nests, and that was a lot of fun. I'll let Beth explain a little bit what was going on. We won't identify these nests, but this is a Milwaukee County nest.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a south with southern nest in Milwaukee County, and um, I think the thing I always think about you, Drew, is I was going to pass on Milwaukee County to someone else, and you were saying back in the day, I never do that. It's the
yeah,
last county to get eagles. I would
yeah,
be watching them, and then I thought, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. So. Yeah, I've stuck with Milwaukee County and I watch each nest for at least a season and then get other volunteers involved because I want other people to enjoy the experience of Milwaukee finally having eagles nesting in the area, possibly in 200 years.
yeah.
Um, so when Milwaukee was built, it was built in the day of, where everything is built out of wood and then you heat your home with wood and you cook your food with wood. So forests got depleted. We had deforestation, habitat loss. And so in 2023, that's the first year we've had eagle successfully nest in Milwaukee County. So this is one of our southern nests, and it has three eaglets in it. And as you can tell, compared to mom, they're not very big. So they still have a little growth yet to do. But that was the nest that had fledged first in uh 2013. So there were a couple others in there, but we
Yeah,
are out of order once again.
yeah, again.
So
Dilemma, and I apologize, but
we'll
yeah,
just
so
go with
this
it.
we went to this nest. We'll get back to these guys. Yeah,
That's
here's another.
also the same nest. So that was sort of the best capture I could get of the three of them. It's difficult because there are a lot of trees around the nest, so how you squeeze in to not be a distraction or a concern to the eaglets and get some of the branches and leaves out of your way and get your camera to focus on the eaglet and
Not yeah.
not the branch in front of you is not so easy to do. But yeah, three healthy looking birds. So
Yeah, and it was, as you can see, this the one over to the left, it's panting. They kind of do that like dogs, and it was pretty warm that day, if I remember correctly. I think it
yeah,
was high 60s, I think it was, or
yeah.
something there. So,
It's warm for
um,
an eaglet with the
yeah,
sun. Sun was out most of the day.
yeah. So, but that was fun. Here's another one we observed. As you can see, they're getting very big. These guys are.
The nest looks absurdly small, but it
Yeah.
isn't that small. The nest, as you're looking at this photo, to your left, that stick that's going up into the corner of the photo, that is the other support for that nest. So it is It isn't as small as what it appears. And there are three eaglets in that nest. At least there have been, so I'm hoping there still is.
Yeah, and they can hide, and it gets very tricky. Just for example, the nest that Beth banded at or observed the banding. That was a couple weeks back, and then when I went Memorial Day, it was pretty much fully leafed out. There is a
Mhm.
window into that nest, but it was very tricky to see anything. I think I saw two of the eaglets. They're probably fine, but it's real tricky this time of year when it starts leafing out to see them, especially with that dark brown. That they can really blend into shadows, especially with the tree, the
Yeah.
leaves overhead. Uh, it's hard to see them. So,
So, this nest is a ridiculous distance
yeah.
from the road. And Ginny went earlier, and she's going to hate that I'm saying this, but she couldn't find it. So I went this afternoon and double checked it. But in her defense, if those big old brown birds aren't standing up in the nest like this, it is very difficult to find it. You have to look for the big brown blobs, which is what we were referring to this nest. How
Yeah.
many blobs were we seeing?
Or
So
turkeys. We call them turkeys too, because the big turkeys that we
this
do.
this photo is heavily cropped, and
Yeah.
it's a not a good photo. So it's we're a long ways away from that nest.
Yeah. And then we observed a few nests. There's a couple, and it's interesting. We'll get into it a little bit more, maybe at a specific podcast about Milwaukee County, because I think it's a really interesting story, and it's been a long time coming, and for us to observe, the first fledging in Milwaukee County, and the research probably at least 150 years, probably even
Yeah.
further back.
I
So
think I'm
that's
not sure the reporter got to 170 years, but it was a substantial number of years since there had been a bald eagle nest in Milwaukee County. And he and I have gotten to know one another a bit, and he talks to me at least once or twice a year. And he I kept saying he kept saying how much he appreciates what we do, and I kept saying, well, it's not like I'm making a sushi dinner for them and
yeah,
introducing them. And he would say, you don't get it. You don't get the significance of what you're reporting on and what you have witnessed. And then once he had talked about how long it had been since there had been a nest in Milwaukee County, it was like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't get it.
yeah.
You think it's DDT, but it wasn't DDT.
Yeah, I think that is. There are a lot of areas that it is DDT, but there's other areas where it's been a much longer, and it
Habitat loss. Yeah.
yeah, I mean DDT was definitely a big influence. It impacted it, but there were other things going on that through the years, a lot of it was, in the Milwaukee area, it was just cutting down all the trees. There just wasn't a habitat for eagles for a number of years. And it was probably a lot to do with the water quality as well. With some of those cities, those Midwestern cities, there was pretty heavily polluted. What is it? I'm trying to remember. I think it was Cleveland where the river there like caught on fire. It was so polluted back in the day. So, it's we've come a long way, definitely. And that's
We could
um,
still get better, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's part of the project that we had talked about the banding. Just to go back to that episode, if you haven't seen that, check that one out. That was a really good episode for us. And they were talking, and that's why they're doing that type of banding to also test um, all sorts of things that are in the environment to see if those eaglets have it and what's going on with that. So that's a great study, and hopefully they're seeing progress as far as it cleaning up. Um, okay, next we're going to talk a little bit about an interesting net. And again, this was another nest we talked about, or another episode of the podcast regarding a nest that Beth calls wildcats for one reason, and that's that they've been seen
Oh, not
catching.
that one. That's
Oh, it's not
Phantom
that.
Cat.
Oh, okay.
You named Wildcat because it was near a Wildcat Creek.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. My
But
my
I don't know. They could be fond of cats too.
yeah,
I'm not
my
sure.
mistake. That I thought it was one and the same, but okay. All right. So Beth, you go into the story. It's your nest. I won't
Well, I have been to it once. When Brenna gave me the location for it, and I went to go confirm that it was indeed a nest, and that was last year. And they played house, so they did not raise young. This year, they returned. They built up the nest, and we have two watchers on it: Laurel, who was the original finder of the nest, and Melanie. And it was about 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from Melanie, very upset. And one of the eaglets, it is suspected the first hatched eaglet was attacking the third hatched, and pulling neck feathers out of the bird's neck. And in subsequent visits, they did confirm that that bird did die. So it is somewhat similar to the Kostacci nest, where the third eaglet killed the fourth eaglet. Um, Dude, in that case, it seemed like a very dire lack of food. In the case of the Wildcat Creek nest that we have here, we don't know why. The first eaglet killed the third eaglet, but seemed fine with the second eaglet. So it's now gone from a nest of three to a nest of two, and they could confirm the body on the edge of the nest. And whether or not it was consumed, I would suspect it has been, but
yeah.
we can't tell from where we're at. Um, but it's very upsetting, in my years of doing this, I have never seen eaglets at 10 weeks old kill another eaglet. And Kostacci, I don't think it was that old, but it was, you know, a large black bird at that point. So you think if there's anything that happens that's going to kill an eaglet in the nest, it's going to be weather related or maybe sibling related at a very early age and not such at such an advanced age.
Yeah,
Um,
that was surprising. Just to give you
yeah,
Beth, about the same age as these
yeah,
guys that we have on
yeah,
screen. Yeah. So yeah, that's not something you see at all, really, to be honest, that I've seen. It is when they're younger, you have that sibling rivalry, and when food gets tight, but it didn't seem like that was the thing. So this one's really a mystery, and it's something I don't know if we'll ever know the full story. It's going to be hard, but
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, they're talking to the homeowners that live. It's farm country, so they're talking to the people around them. But it's so this is something I'm theorizing on, Drew, and you can
yeah,
tell me, how nuts I am thinking this. But so lack of food is one of the primary reasons why a sibling would attack and kill another sibling because it wants
yeah,
it
so,
needs the food in order to survive, and so it's survival of the fittest.
yeah,
So as these new parents are rearing their young, they're feeding three in the nest and everything is going just fine, and they seem to be on target with feedings. And then as they're getting larger, is there sometimes maybe a disconnect where the parents think, I am feeding X amount to each bird and I'm continuing to do so, but they don't seem happy with the amount of food I'm feeding them
yeah.
anymore. Like they're not really recognizing that because the bird is growing, the bird needs more food.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point. Usually, and this is again, every nest is differently at that um 6 to 7 week, sometimes even into a little bit later, they're feeding themselves. The adults, are less and less evolved with that. So they're dropping off the food at the nest, and then it's kind of a free-for-all between the eaglets as far as who's getting what. That's when a lot of times you see them kind of tugging. Um, a fish or
Mantling,
whatever
yeah.
together. And, it's more of a free for all because they are able to feed themselves at that point to tear off pieces and eat it. So, again, the adults aren't refereeing as much in the nest. So, yeah, I don't know
But maybe they aren't
how,
bringing enough of a volume of food
yeah,
for three, because, and we're assuming that these are brand new parents. They
yeah,
haven't, they weren't successful last year. We don't know for sure that they're the same birds, but it might be a learning curve for them. That food is available. They just aren't realizing how much growing eaglets need to eat, I guess, is but I wonder a lot of things that there aren't answers for, but that's something that have been curious about just because of seeing things like this take place when there's a huge lake right there.
yeah,
It's like, how are they not able to go get a fish for, and
yeah,
that was something with Kostachey because there was big beautiful lake right behind them, and
yeah,
either the parents are deficient hunters or I don't know, but it is a it I have not I've witnessed it on the Nest Cam, but it was really rough for those Laurel and Melanie and their families to
yeah.
witness such a brutality, and it's hard for us to fathom and to understand. Um, did you want me to go with that quote that I read you
Yeah,
earlier?
yeah, I think that's a great quote that you found.
So there was a nest in Maine in 2014 where a similar thing happened where a sibling killed the smaller, weaker eaglet, and people were calling for them to go up there and get the save the weaker one. And it said they're quoted as saying, a raptor specialist says, the nest cam is more of a mirror to reflect what's going on with all eagle nests. It is not
um,
used as a baby monitor to intervene when we see something that makes us feel sad as humans.
yeah.
And Drew and I both thought, wow, that was incredibly well said.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean it's unfortunate, but it's part of what it is, what happens in the nest is these wild animals. So I think in this case it's probably a number of different factors. I think it's interesting that it happens so late. That's surprising. It is a younger pair, so that could have some influence on it. Maybe that whatever they're doing, and it purely could be that larger eaglet is just its instincts is I'm gonna survive. I'm gonna last, and it's just more aggressive in nature than the smaller ones. So maybe it's something like that. I imagine it's a lot of different factors. It's probably all of them rolled into one that caused what happened. But yeah, that's really surprising that it's that
so
late.
that's in all my years, that's the first I have heard of that.
Yeah,
And this nest that we're looking at right now, this is a Racine County nest, and it had three eaglets in it. I haven't seen the three eaglets for a while, but it's not surprising that I can't see three,
yeah,
but the two other watchers haven't seen three in quite a while, but one of them definitely knew there were three.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, so I'm curious to see if we end up having three fledging here because something similar could have
yeah.
happened and we're just not aware of it.
Yeah, and it's they can hide, especially with the with leafing out, and it does get a little bit more tense as they grow with the size of the nest. So that could be another factor too. If it is a first year eagle, breeding pair, it's going to be, you would think would be a smaller nest than some of the older, more experienced pairs that have added to it a number of times. So that could have been a factor too, where it's just, like a lot of us, if you're in close space with people and you get a little irritated. So maybe that has something to do with it too.
Well,
I don't know.
well,
It's
that's my
again,
theory why
nest
the third
specific.
one never wants to leave the nest. It
Yeah.
wants the
Yeah.
bedroom all to itself now that the bunk beds are removed and the other eaglets
Yeah.
are gone. Um, but it's interesting and we can theorize on it, but you can't ask the eaglet what possessed it to do what it did, and
Yeah.
they're not human. This is not abnormal behavior for them, but it seemed mighty late in the show for
Yeah.
something like that to come up. Um, and it could be that just some eaglets are more aggressive than others.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't know, you know, as you know, and they do have different personalities. They all have slightly different personalities. You get to know them, especially observing them for many years, like you have done, Beth,
Yeah.
with a number of nests. So they do have their distinct personalities, but we can't really tell how much. Again, they don't talk to us, so we don't know. But yeah, aggression could be the cause too. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation, and one we'll keep an eye on, and with your monitor to see how the other two do. So
The other two apparently seem fine together. That was a nest I wanted to take you to, but it was
yeah,
just another hour torture.
yeah, yeah.
I think we'd had enough of sitting in the car by that time.
Yeah, it was a long but fun day watching eagles and seeing different eagles. So yeah,
Mm.
but I guess our last segment we want to do is talk about after they fledge, because this happens a lot. It's starting to happen now, and what do they do? Because it's not an ending. It's kind of a start to a new time frame, I guess, when they do fully fledge and come out of the nest. So this is one of your pictures. What's going on
Yeah,
here, Beth?
this is a nest that I had also taken you to. This is one of
Yeah.
my longest term nests in Walworth County. And this is a nest where the parents actually have preferred at times, depending on I guess the way the eaglets of that season prefer to be fed, but they like to do a lot of feeding on the ground, where they'll just do a flyover and they'll just drop a fish and on the ground in the park basically, and the eaglets will run to the fish. So seeing eaglets on the ground is not a sign that anything is wrong. Um, this just happens to be near the nest, and the eaglets spend a lot of time in mud puddles and taking baths and drinking water and enjoying the grass and laying down in the shade. So once they learn to fledge and have control over their destination and can fly up from being down, a lot of times on a hot day and when the flies are bad, they enjoy the shade of a tree and just laying in the grass. So,
And here's another common thing. You'll see them perched, likely near the nest. I
yep.
would say, I would say not all the nests do this, but a lot of times what the adults do is after a fledge, they will actually still continue to bring food to the nests. A lot of time, usually about at least 6 weeks is typically that time where it gives the new fledglings a time to learn how to be eagles. And the adults do, one of my favorite things that I used to do at one of my old nests in New York State was after fledging is watch kind of the family dynamic. And it was really fun to watch, mom or dad showing them how to fish and kind of just observing them like you can see the adult flying down, and you got to get the right angle to kind of catch the fish, and it's a hard skill. So they would be doing it, and then the fledglings would follow suit and try it, and a lot of times miss and not catch a fish or crash into the water and have to swim. But they have to learn how to, these skills are very important so they can get food for their home eventually once they're on their own.
And that's an important point, Drew. Eagles can swim. So people think if they see an eagle in the water, it's in distress, and it isn't necessarily in distress. It could have a fish in its talons that's too big for it to fly off
Yeah.
with, so it uses its wings as paddles, like oars, to get to the shore, where it'll drag the fish up to eat it. So they actually are pretty good swimmers.
Yeah, they are. They really are.
And this nest is the same nest as the last bird, and this is one of my oldest nests. And one of the things I like about them is I can still find them in August and September as a family unit. They aren't at the nest anymore, but they are elsewhere on the lake where they live. And I think the parents keep these guys around a long time and teach them a lot of skill sets. So it isn't just once you're out of the nest, you're gone, and adios, you're on your own, you'll figure it all out. And because sometimes eagles don't figure it all
Yeah.
out, as you know, I've said before, we have where I volunteer as a raptor handler, we have an eagle who was left too soon, didn't learn good hunting skills, and learned to rely on humans for food. And that's dangerous for the bird and for humans, and so it cannot be released. So you want the birds to develop a good set of skills for hunting, so that they can take care of themselves. Otherwise, that's where that 50% mortality rate comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then this is one working on its takeoff. That's again, as Beth had mentioned, that's something. Just to one of my experiences, my first time observing nests, and it was a lot of fun, was out in Colorado. And you would think that because of being it out more wide open, less trees. But it was interesting. A lot of the fledglings crashed into, the oil rigs and the other pumps that they were pumping this stuff at. It seemed to be like a kind of a moth to the light type of deal where they were crashing into it. It was pretty funny. They never hurt themselves, but they were crashing into these these areas. And it's just it takes a long time for them to they do that first flight, but as Beth mentioned, the landing, they got to stick the landing, they
Yeah,
got to practice all of it. A little fact about that is these eaglets, these feathers, they're actually a little bit longer than the adults. It's we call them kind of training wheels. So it helps them get a little more lift, so they have longer feathers to help them as they learn how to fly. So that's another cool thing about the evolution of bald eagles, and it takes them a while. They are crashing into a lot of things for a while until they learn. So
their
there's
tails are also longer too, which
yeah,
helps those that are in the forest navigate, turns and not crashing into a tree trunk, which would be good.
yeah,
Rather get that soft branch with the leaves on it.
yeah. And there's just a
Yeah.
great view of the liftoff. So that's a lot of practice that you have to get into. It's really, really pretty. And I love the coloring.
Yeah. And this
All,
is a case in point where I was too close and I'm the reason that this
yeah,
bird um was flushed. It was I ended up looking up and we made eye contact and I didn't realize it was there and it
yeah,
didn't care until I looked up. So
yeah.
um but it was a beautiful moment. Those pantaloons on the legs are
Oh,
just
yeah, yeah. And those
great to see.
talons, those are impressive. Those,
Yeah. Yeah. Can do a lot of damage to a fellow
yeah.
eaglet in the nest.
And this one, again, this is a situation, and this is something we do. I know we've talked about it. Once they're out of the nest, that's really a lot of times that's where rehabbers get involved. If there is sibling rivalry or stuff going in the nest, we can't really do anything most of the time, unless it's a real like
Extreme.
special, extreme experience situation. But there are fledglings that get hurt quite a bit of times. They are crashing, and we have had a lot of cases where either like this one, it's just way too wet. They get stuck in the bog or mud or whatever, and they need some help. And that's, I believe, Beth, this one did end up going to a rehabber. Just
Right. This
yeah,
was a case where part of the tree fell off again. They kept rebuilding in the same dead tree and it kept falling apart on them. This was one of two eaglets. We were able to get this one and it went, although it was pretty shifty.
yeah,
And then it went to rehab for quite a while. They said it had bruises. Nothing was broken, but it had some bruises. And so It remained in rehab for quite a while and then was not released with the family because by that time they had kind of moved on, but was released with another eaglet and an adult. So hopefully it fared well. But seeing as the book Return to the Sky, if you have been reading it, I mean, the first eaglets released in New York State in 1976 were two Wisconsin eaglets
Yeah,
that ended up surviving and 5 years later made it and started raising families.
yeah,
So it is possible to not have the tutelage of parents to teach you what to do. Instinct kicks in and you do it.
yeah. Yeah, and this is also a good point. Probably a good tip from us as well. If you do come upon an eagle on the ground, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as Beth had mentioned, but if you do think there is something going on that's not, if this eaglet is, for one thing, not getting up, not getting flight, or showing signs of being lame or whatnot, definitely contact your local rehabber. We've done this a number of times. They know what's going on. They can kind of walk you through, okay, this one sounds like it's fine, or oh, no, I think we need to get involved. So, um, if there is a situation where you're out at your local nest and something like this, you observe something like this eagle, do contact them. Don't try to catch them. They're very fast most of the time, and
Mhm.
you're probably going to need help. Um,
The other thing that you're probably going to want, and one of the things that talking to one of our rehab facilities in Milwaukee, they say take a photo of it, and then if you can, take a video of its movement so that they can see how the bird is behaving. Once they call you back, they'll give you a number to send those photos so that they can assess it because they don't have the manpower to necessarily run out there and look at
Yeah. And here's another picture. They perch by the nest, and
it.
that's something that's tricky for our volunteers. That we every year I have to kind of help our volunteers, especially the newer ones. You get the fledglings coming back to the nest, as I mentioned. A lot of times they drop the food off at the nest, and that's kind of the feeding spot still after fledging. And they can trick you. They might be in, you think, oh, they're a nestling. Ah. And then all of a sudden they fly off, and you understand that they are a fledgling that just was coming back for food. And then a lot of times they'll perch by the nest. They are very loud at this period of their life. They're always squawking.
A lot of crying going on.
Yes, yes. Complaining that mom and dad didn't bring enough food. So a lot of times,
DoorDash
especially.
is just not what it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then like because of that, a lot of times, with the I've said this many times to our volunteers, if you have a tree that really leaves out, and a lot of times it can block 100% of the nest, or there's only small windows, use your ears because you're going to hear these guys. They'll tell you where they are, and then you can say, okay, they're over there and three trees over from the nest. They're likely a fledgling. So they're very loud, and they'll clue you into what's going on.
Ironically, when you watch movies or commercials, oftentimes the voice of a uh, red-tailed hawk has been dubbed over the voice of a bald eagle because
Yeah,
somebody decided somewhere that the bald eagle's sound was just not that majestic. But when they're this young, a bald eagle and a red-tailed hawk sound exactly the same to
they
me.
do.
And
Yeah.
we have a red-tailed hawk nest that's behind our house. And hearing them cry, it's like I keep looking for a bald eagle, and it's like you're not going to get that lucky, Beth.
Yeah.
Like they mysteriously built a nest,
Yeah.
right in view of my house, and but I keep hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
Um,
someday. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Just
Well, you
from.
saw it now. You see what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, no, there's definitely there's potential. You have,
Yeah,
you have some eagle habitat, you have some good sized trees, so yeah,
yeah.
there is a chance. There's always a chance.
I
Fingers
have
crossed.
chickens. Yeah, we
Yeah.
just keep open.
Okay.
This nest was the northern Milwaukee nest that we visited, where we decided there is no eaglet in the nest this year. So this was last year's nest. Now there was this year's nest, which was built new beside this nest, and then there was a third nest that
Mhm.
was built across like a little prairie from here. So. I'm not sure why they failed this year, but there's the adults are certainly in the area.
Yeah.
But this was last year's fledgling.
Yeah, and that makes it tricky too. That's another point. A lot of times after, for whatever reason, if a nest fails, a lot of times the adults leave the area, but that's not 100%. And again, I sound like a broken record, but it's every nest is a little bit different. So some of them stick around, some of them don't. So it can make it a little tricky. But yeah, we observed this nest on our little road trip, and it's a beautiful area. I'm not surprised why they picked that area. It's a nice eagle territory, and they were still around, so the adults were still around. So maybe it is that it's great fishing in that area, and that's, might as well stick around, defend your territory, and even if you did fail or weren't productive that season. So
Well, I usually can find them at any time of year. So they are an eagle's nest where the adults tend to stay in their territory for the most part year round. Um, but yeah, it's just curiosity what happened to them this year. That is a very proud fledgling.
yeah, that's a beautiful picture and a beautiful eagle. Yeah, it's and you'll see that a lot. They'll be hanging out in the nest area. So if you do observe an eagle cam, there's a good chance even after fledge that they will be back at least in the nest. Not everyone. I remember there was a nest in New York that I observed. They moved kind of downstream and didn't use the nest as the main place to to give drop off food and stuff. But the vast majority of the nests that I've observed, they use that nest as kind of their hub even after fledging. So you're not going to lose them. They'll be
Yeah,
back
it's the
at
meeting
least for a
point.
little while. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then as we said, it's usually at least 6 weeks. They will progress, and then they move on in the fall for our area, for the northern United States. They observe in the fall. They'll go out on their own and begin their life as a first year eagle, and it can be a tough one. As Beth mentioned, it's about 50% survive that first year, but usually if they survive that first year, they're good and they can, live to
If
20,
they get out of
25
the
years.
nest, I
Yeah.
think it improves.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So,
And this is if I haven't gone off on this before, I'll go off on it now. This picture illustrates the importance of a snag.
yeah.
So this is a snag. It is a dead tree, and the thing that makes it so alluring to eagles is they have a vista. The eaglets can see exactly where to land. So, as new fledglings, it's very easy for them um, to pick a part of the tree to try to go for and land on. It also feeds a lot of other wildlife. Woodpeckers love this,
Yeah.
and there's red-headed woodpeckers, all sorts of stuff around this snag. And even though we have been trained to think these things are unsightly, and a person who doesn't take down a dead tree is just, not taking care of their property properly. That's kind of hard to say. Um, it actually is a great benefit for your yard and for fledging birds. So hug a dead tree. It needs it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important to keep their habitats. I know a number of, it's been a couple of cases that I can think of in the past where territory has shifted, where, the landowner has chopped down trees and dead ones usually, and they don't think anything of it, but it shifts the territory where you know, the Eagles might not come back. They might, but it's gonna cause some distress in them because they're used to these perches where they're hunting, or they're just it's their favorite perch, or it's their favorite perch that they use for fishing. So it can be it can cause some problems if these trees are cut down. So yeah. All right.
And
Well,
then with that, the other things that I always beg people to do, don't throw fruit or, banana peels out your car window. You attract rodents to the side of the road, and rodents attract bigger rodents, and then you have birds of prey come in to get those rodents because it's an easy place to find a roadside meal. And that's often how birds are non-releasable, is because they get hit by a car.
yeah.
And, you have more lift when you were hungry. And once you've been on the ground feeding on something, you don't have the same lift that you had. And, these guys don't get pamphlets about driving, restrictions and, from the DMV. So,
Yeah.
they don't know what a car is other than it's too late by the time it clips them. And then no lead in your fishing gear or bullets if you're a hunter. If you can get the lead out, it would save a lot of our wildlife. Hunting, my husband grew up hunting. It's just the lead. The lead is the issue because it kills majestic creatures like this that we don't need um, doing secondhand damage to.
Yeah, and fortunately, with how technology has evolved, there's other types of metals that are just as effective as lead and just don't splinter out and cause issues to, eagles and other birds too, and some mostly the ones that are, um, they're if there is a dead deer or whatnot, they're scavenging on those type of sites, and it doesn't take much. It's a very small piece that can
Very small.
cause.
It's like a little part of your fingernail.
Yeah,
So it's very tiny, and it's an agonizing and painful death.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and then
It's
the treatment is agonizing for
yeah,
them as well. So there isn't a rehabber on this planet or a nature center or anything that doesn't beg people to get the lead out. And we know from, at least, I think, Drew, you're old enough. I know I am. But, when we were little, there was a big deal about no lead paint.
yeah,
When I was a kid, everything was painted with lead, and lead would peel off. People would stick it in their mouths. Little kids stick it in their mouths. It looks like candy if it's a bright color. And there a lot of neurological damage was being done to humans by lead. So we know it's bad stuff. So we just need to do the right thing and get the lead out. I love this photo.
yeah. It's a great one. Yeah,
I cropped it like this. I
yeah.
don't know. It just makes me happy.
Yeah, it probably, unfortunately, I think this adult is blocked by us, but you get the gist of it.
Oh,
It's a great short. So, yeah, I think with that we'll end. Again, if you like what we're doing, subscribe, like, follow us on Facebook. Trying to Instagram. Hopefully, we can get some more followers and do
we're
some more of
Instagram
that.
week.
Yeah, we are weak. We're probably socials week too. So, but and again, interact with us. We're happy to that. But we try to answer as many comments as we can. Questions, send them along. You can also email us at nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com. And I think with that, we'll shut it down if unless Beth has anything else to add.
I'm not going to complain about anything else. No,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Well, fingers crossed that Jackie and Shadow's Nest and they have some fledgings, and definitely in the program we have anticipating a couple more weeks of it's going to start getting a
Crazy.
lot of fledglings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which is always exciting. So exciting.
And we hope their fledging is magnificent in
Yeah.
form and function.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are two of the most well-loved eaglets
Yeah.
in the world right now.
Yeah,
So
for sure. It's been fun to follow and follow along and follow that story. So it's great. All right. Okay, with that, we'll see you next
Bye
time.
bye.